a slightly different take on what Charles Epstein was writing about in regards to conspiracy. In general, I think it's a very good essay. My take on it, he's presenting some really poignant information, some really interesting angles, some of which I haven't thought of before. I really like his point about the idea that conspiratorial notions are addictive in the sense that they are sort of trying to, or they have this element of uncovering that which is unseen, unknown, the shadow side of humanity, and digging into that is kind of like drinking coffee. It has this addictive quality because it's stuff that, although totally could be fabricated, as he says, non-falsifiable, it's exciting because of the potentials of it being true in that sense. That said, you can still apply empiricism to certain elements of things, and the good conspiratorialist, if there is such a thing, would be one in which there is a high degree of empiricism alongside the more radical coupling of creative notions that are outside the box in the sense that they don't stand in the equation of the typical societal schema. And that's where things like maybe Alex Jones are tough for us to really digest, and I'm going to put out another video shortly about this, in the sense that he has this traditionalist underbelly. Nothing wrong with that in a sense, but he's presenting his ideas through a modernist framework and attaching it to a postmodern collectivist mindscape where everybody can call in and share their own views. But it has the downside, arguably, of for at least the modernist, postmodernist, and integralist, of sort of being attached philosophically to a more traditionalist base. But where Charles Epstein, I think, I don't feel in total resonance with, is essentially his ideas saying that, there has to be a double society, and that's an impossibility, and that although this does sound strange, I've quoted the example of the Manhattan Project before because it is so potent that you can have 100,000 people working on a singular project where only a couple hundred people know the whole outcome and final end game of it, the creation of a nuclear bomb. And he even quotes things like the Nazi regime as being an example of ideology. And from my research, it's actually, although it's spouting ideology, it's actually not an ideological thing. It was more of a corporate thing, using ideological references to persuade, much in the way that people like Edward Bernays use these sorts of systems of thinking to attach people to products. The product in this case was the political product of Hitler and his ideology, which was a political ideology for the purpose of a movement in corptocracy, from what I can tell, and that's not a perfect. But that is the problem. It is the problem that this stuff is, if true, marginalized and somewhat secretive, and the digging into this information is almost impossible to be 100% accurate on. So you have to balance that with interpretation, that is to say our cultural / social / text / media interpretation. Balance that with one's own mental state, biopsycho-emotional presence of the interrelationship between interpretation and objective, or the projected objective info coming at you. How does that, authentically speaking, how does that uprise in you, or something of that sort. That's not clear. Apologies for that.